Hello, Reza. Reza just asked me what's my number in this project. 100 people, 100 days, and I tell him, I tell you, you are number 100 or 99. Let's say 99 or 100, like you wish.
So I'm considering lucky, or I don't know, but very happy to be here for sure.
We are in the Hugenottenhaus. Welcome all people inside this room. There are very much people here now, and in the digital cyberspace also you're welcome. And we are in the Hugenottenhaus in the exhibition. In the frame of the exhibition First Aid, Erste Hilfe First Aid, we have this project, 100 people, 100 days. In German it's 100 Menschen, 100 Tage. And I see just I'm part of the team of a collective. And it's Stefan Haberzettel, it's Jasmin Moalem, Stefan von Borstel, Pascal Heusner, Maurice Malten, und Silvia Freier. We are a little team to plan this. It touches us very, very, very much in this 100 days. And today, it's Reza. We are speaking about Reza, and we are speaking about documenta, we are speaking artist life or human beings life, and so on. And my first question will be, 5 years ago you get this announcement to be curatorial team of Documenta 15. How you reach this message, you in which house, in which situation?
Okay, first of all, we would like to greet everyone here, also the ones that already following this 100 days, 100 peoples, that's very important. And then since last couple of weeks, actually, we've been having conversations with you to regard like when that I should also be contributing to this program, which is I really appreciate lots. And then I could have a chance to sit here together. So actually, like our to regard these particular invitations, the first time that we got to submit the proposal, actually back in the second semester of 2018. Actually, during that particular period, we don't yet being or submitting anything to Documenta, because we also still concerned to regard our ecosystem, that since like during that time it was like since 17 years actually we don't have a place to that solid space for us to occupy with. So we mostly every time we have to move to find a space to rent or something like that. And then 2017 actually we got the grant, and then we continuing that we could buy our own space, so we don't need to think toward the renting situation. And we govern this together with other collective, not only ruangrupa in the sense, so it's becoming ecosystem. So actually in this particular moment is really critical, and as well as very important, because for us collectives mean way of living, because this is part of our daily situations on how we aside of practicing but also working. So like this is like the sense of us being collective in ruangrupa. So 2019 actually this is the particular particular conditions when we already submitted, and then we're facing different steps for sure to regard this interview or coming to Kassel. Actually, I'm not the one who first coming to Kassel during that period because I don't have visa. So it's only like 3 of us from out of 9 of us that working conditionally for Documenta. But
excuse me, was Farid Raccoon the first one who was in Kassel?
Yes, during that time it was Farid, Ade, and Sari. Because as you know, us as Indonesia, we need to have a visa to come to Europe mostly, and during that period, actually, it's quite sudden when we get invited to present our proposal, let's say. So among us in ruangrupa during that time, it's not only 9 of us, but like together with the rest of the ecosystem, we decided who could come. And then the one who have a visa during that period is only 3%, so they come here first. But actually, like our relationship to Germany and as well to regard our artistic practices, it's been connected to different cities. But quite unfortunate, up until that time, we haven't been to Kassel, or even none of us. Perhaps only Farid experiencing Documenta's 13 or 12, I forgot. But none of us visited Documenta, or none of us even know what is documenta as an big art event at this particular scale. So that's the period when we start to develop up until we get announced and selected, for sure, selected and announced. That's the key point on how we need to decide together as a collective whom we should proceed within our process back in Jakarta, and to accompany in parallel to regard our process to for Documentas 15.
Very complex situation as you describe it, and it's I think it's 3 years ago that you visited the Hugenottenhaus, and we walked around through the Hugenottenhaus, this old house, this art culture house, and also we interviewed Farid Raccoon, and I know I asked him, I see this in a little film on YouTube, ask him, you said it's more important to make friends than art. Can you say something about this koan, about this sentence?
In particular, actually, because our practice within ourselves individually, in the context on how we generate these particular relationships, even before the when we start to initiate a collective called ruangrupa, because our relationships, it's been since our college time back in the 90s. So within this strong gesture of relationships, compare to regard what is to collaborate. So we mostly use the term of relationships, because for us that's much more even stronger, and even without any term and conditions as a friends. So that's why it is kind of like generating into sense like within our practice back in Jakarta is a quite dense inhabitants for sure, and then also it's quite complex within this our diversities, and we are stranded mostly in Java Island. So we thought like by making friends is much more clear for us steps also to acknowledge different kind of matters, and in the realistic way of approach. Although we know that we have consideration that our life having a close approach to regard our artistic practices, but the most important thing to regard our societies back in Jakarta, actually creating friends is much more challenge rather than creating art. So that's why we thought like within this saying, actually like since the beginning, like our focus, actually this is not like a solid term. Like we use it because we know within us conditions back in Jakarta's context. So to make friends, not art, it seems like not really concerning about the art itself, but actually it's actually the way around, because we know the importance is when we could create such a friendship, for sure the relations toward artistic practice is always there.
For us it's very astonishing that you say this sentence, make friends, not art, or being friendship or friends. It's and I very often heard that you said we are not networking, it's a relationship, we are interested in relationship. But in our culture, it's other topics or issues are important. I see a work in Documenta from African artists with many knives, and there was one sentence this man's artist spoke. He said, "Don't make the knives too sharp. It could hurt you, hurt the owner." And in our culture, we have very sharp knives. It's very important for, we not only hurt others, we hurt ourselves and so on, the world climate change, we hurt everybody. And for us, it's very important to have sharp knives. We read this in the newspapers. It's written with very sharp, let's say, knives in metaphoric sense. And so you bring quality in to Europe, Germany, Kassel, which for us is very astonishing and unusual. And I know very well that I see you in the Perle Bar. Our daughter runs the Perle Bar, and we sit there out. And it was maybe October, I don't know. It was a warm day, and you. We talk about is it warm in a double sense, in a physical sense, and in a what's the other, the personal sense. Do you remember? Yeah. And then you invite immediately. You invite your friends Iswanto and the family, and we sit there. And this was very unusual. Once upon a time, there was a curator, not Documenta 15. It was another Documenta curator in. curator in. And they wanted to learn about Kassel artists, and we invited this curator woman drinking coffee, and this curator, I don't know, 12 or 13, I don't want to say make it too personal, said, "I'm not in Kassel to make friends." Yes. Sharp knife, in the same moment you are, this information reaches you and you know what's happened then. And now you are stopped by Corona because your kind of work is just visit people. I see you every place, visit, make relations, speak with people. We are very, very respectful, or it's more than just respect. I don't know the word now. That you come from bottom up. With this top-down position, you come from bottom up in every society, every institution knows you years before documenta start. And is this working? Is this your kind of working?
Thank you for mentioning this. But to be honest, like partly because Indonesian is a quite huge archipelago. So most of the time it's always concentrating in this particular island like Java. I mean, even since the colonial era up until the authoritarian regime and such, like Java is always have like a strong way to designate it as a place for everyone's outside of Java could chasing their dreams. That's one particular point that makes us sad, not like really knowing about what's going on outside Java, because it's quite hardly for us to travel or even to meet our sisters and brothers around Indonesia in this particular context. Because first, we acknowledge that we are respected in each of every positions that we are experiencing with or to deal and work with. And then within this particular base of our knowledge to regard our context in the society, especially in our cultural societies, to have these strong connections to the earth, it's much more.
Excuse me, to the earth.
To the earth, yeah, because we always stay in the ground, yeah. So, like for example, like even in Indonesia, I mean, cultural wise, actually, we don't have high-rise building. So that's one, because we always attach to the ground. That's one thing. So within these particular notions that embed to our practice, we always, I mean, you could call it like it's always very horizontal to regard any kind of approach. And secondary, none of us in ruangrupa having a background of curatorial. And then none of us even study art historians, art history, I mean. So for us to create this, again, continuing to regard our practice to always keep these relationships alive, always acknowledge like new friends with the particular different background. This is always part of our curiosities, how we try to connect, how we try to embed. And then most importantly, when we start get invited to Kassel, that's for us, or even for me personally, even to get to regard our dear family, the ones that also staying here in Kassel, that's the first time that we would like to embrace the ecosystem of Kassel, because that's much more important to our knowledge, because this is also the way that we always having the capacities to acknowledge many differences back in Jakarta. It's only Jakarta, right? So Jakarta, Kassel, it's not fair to compare about the biggest or the dance or something like that, but it's more like into the human relations. So that's why when we start to think that we need to live here and then be part of the societies, be part on how we, not only because of the sense of documenta give us privilege, but how we have the sense how to connect, because it's always, it could be the way around. For example, you come to Jakarta, let's say.
Thank you.
For sure, you will be embedded to regard how these relations in the deeper context, because this is always the things that happen, which is everyone could like really embrace you, although this particular person is not a host for you. So this is always like the strong gesture about how we would like also to connect as a human, although as a challenge because we work for the institution, for example. But in Jakarta or in our context, in our practice, we never like really differentiate to regard, okay, because you work in an institution, then you have to behave like this or something like that. No, I mean, we are very flexible on how we position ourselves. And the third, the important things that we would like to embrace by acknowledging most of our dear friends in Kassel is also to gain experience, because this is the only chance for us to learn. Or else, if we back in Indonesia, it's quite hard or barely to learn from anyone or any person that not came in the same island. But this is like the only chance for us to like really learning or having like different thoughts or sharing. I mean, like not only into very specific matters, yeah, but it's kind of like a daily, because we would like also be part of these daily narrations about what is Kassel, because we never know, we didn't know. I mean, this is also for you all here. If you come to Indonesia, for sure you will be stranded in Java most of the time because of the international airport and such, or you have a choice to go to international airport in Bali. But in the sense like how you like also to embrace this particular feeling. So that's why like the warm feeling. I mean, I remember that you and Sylvia even offering me the coat, no? Because you I'm saying that I'm too cold here, even though it's October.
I remember, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
This is very astonishing. My whole family are living in Uckermark. If I go to Uckermark, they give me food, they give me a safe place, they give me open the heart. And for me and our culture, it's unbelievable that you are so open-minded, open-hearted, because we know that we have this time as Suharto. My country started 2 world wars, and even after that, they supported Suharto. It's not only my country, it's Bundeskanzler Helmut Kohl. He said, Suharto is my friend. How can somebody be your friend who kills 100,000 of people? And for me, the question is, how can you be so friendly anymore in this country, which helps such a man?
I think if it concerning to that matter, for sure, like each of every one of us, even direct or indirect connected to regard our particular history. But each of every human, each of every person have its own particular history, the way that they would like to receive it or achieve it, for example. But in our context, especially because we grew up also, I mean, most of our ruangrupa's family, we grew up also together with the authoritarian regimes. But we acknowledge like how, I mean, for us, like to learn about the situations within our history of our country since the authoritarian regime start, let's say, actually it's also to acknowledge what's happened in the societies. So this is partly like on how we would like to evaluate the way that we are have a purpose on living together. That's the thing. And then also we find out like how we strengthen because we have the same needs, and then at the same time we also would like to acknowledge what happened in the other struggle within the ones that we never met yet in Indonesia's context. So sometimes this is make us more put in the realization, yes, we're dealing with our own trauma, for sure. But in the other hands, we also need to proceed the ones that could be creating more into good deeds in the sense. Because actually it's not about like Indonesia, Europe, or particularly like German or something. But I mean, mostly everywhere we're dealing with these particular situations. And then but it's depend on how you would like to embrace it, because it is difficult. I mean, perhaps I saying this partly like because from my own personal point of view, for sure we need also to respect the rest of the point of view that also acknowledge such a sensitive histories. And Indonesia, most of the time since 60s, we try to bury everything. This is the gesture of authoritarian regimes. Try to bury everything, try to stabilize everything. But this is like makes us really unsecure within this, because we need to acknowledge what happened to the next generations. Yes. So that's why to create this more into deeper, intimate conversations, relationship everywhere, when the fall down of the New Order regime, for example, we celebrating it. Like suddenly we could like really hang out in the streets. Suddenly we could even play football in the streets. Suddenly we could watch the movie in the streets. Suddenly we could just go like really hang out without any time considerations everywhere. So we kind of like celebrating this again, because beforehand we could still do that, but they're always like monitoring from even from the society itself. So that's why for us, like to making like more into this particular attachment as a human being, that's much more important. Yeah.
Oh yes, this is very important. What's the next question? Don't know.
Yeah, for me, it's very happy to becoming like 100, 100% within 100 days. Because I thought the 100 days should be tomorrow, not 24, if I'm not mistaken, or today.
Today is the last day of these 100 people.
Then I must say that I'm very lucky.
You're the last one, and there's no question anymore. No, wait a minute. Let's go further on in this history. Now you visit Kassel and it's Corona, and even if it's Corona, you're try to make friends, try to relate, meeting people. I'm a witness of this process. I know this, and I know Isvanto, I know you mainly, but also others. Agus, for example. I ask myself, Agus, he lives in an area, the other side of Jakarta. There was military pressure and also the tsunami. And Agus is an Indonesian artist from your group. We had him in this interview, and he goes there and sings with the people and talks with the people and invited them to come with him in like a stage like this, and with a situation to talk and to transform the trauma. And I ask myself whether is this part of your culture? Also, is this a main topic of your culture? Being friendly, being human, being you talk about that you are sitting on the earth. It means something. Agus, he's walking. He's in this film in Grimwald. He's looking for the Dao river, and always he's very kindful. This is 15 people. We have 100. He's 50 people, and he's so kindful. And just if we hear him, it opens your heart. If you see him, how kindful he is. We are not kindful in our culture. We are looking for mistakes. We have sharp knives. And is this part of your culture, being kindness, kindful?
And I guess within this, I mean, so many contexts in the sense on how we would like to realize on how we practicing, or in the same time we also exercising in our daily life to regard what is the relationship so far. For sure, perhaps to heard the stories within us from Indonesia, it seems like, oh, this is the ideal, right? Or this is like the, what's it called? Like, oh, this is like such a wonderful life. But actually, to be honest, it's always frictions. It's always frictions everywhere. It's always disconnected also. Yeah. So, but because we understand how difficult it is to like really struggle, especially in the big cities like Jakarta, how you manage to survive, how you need to create yourself an options even, because there's no such thing as an options that being given or being acknowledged. We need to find ourselves an options. So the only options that we had, the ones that could connect as a common and as a common sense, actually to being introduced by each other. Because then because we always believe that each of every one of us is a such resource. It's very resourceful. So it's depend on sufficient you are to like really could get connected with others. We have saying actually back in Indonesia's context, if you don't have to, you don't need to. It's okay. I mean, it's okay to disagree to relate our societies from Java to other island. But we have still strong connections, because we believe that in somehow these particular options could tie you, like make you stronger. Although beforehand you didn't know what's going on within this particular gesture of the ones that came, for example, from the west part, or I mean in Indonesia's context, yeah, from the West Indonesia or from the center of Indonesia, we don't know. This is like the strong gesture, because we know like we are not enemy, like we have our own common enemy. Because this is the things that we acknowledge to regard authoritarian regimes. Like most of the common enemy is there. Beforehand, most of our common enemy is the military, for example. For example, everyone's know, although perhaps we don't close to each other, but you have, also I have the same common enemy. Yeah, this is very
That helps.
Yeah, it helps. So, and then suddenly when we start to having this sort of conversations, and then suddenly we relate in somehow, although perhaps you still dislike me in the sense, but we still have a strong gesture on how if we could still go together. This is kind of like the ones that we always perceive as a cultural societies. Because as you know, Indonesia also, before the colonial era, we've been governed, or not governed, like most of our territory actually being governed by one particular big kingdom. And then this big kingdom suddenly is becoming turned into small scale of kingdom. And then this small scale of kingdom, sometimes they fought within each other. Like us, in the border of West Java to Central Java, there's like a big war even. So this is kind of like the way that how we nurture this particular differences. So within Agus, for example, Agus came from Banda Aceh, for sure. Banda Aceh, during the authoritarian regimes, it's always related to the separatist movement back there.
And what's the separatist movement? Just to
because Aceh during that time have this so-called separatist movement that called Gerakan Aceh Merdeka, which is Aceh would like to proclaim their own independency. But it's kind of like generating more in the issues to for perhaps authoritarian regime would like to control within that area, which is actually authoritarian regime already control everything. But this is like to give a sense, because Banda Aceh is like we call it like very special districts or regions or province, because they have like a very strong gesture of Islam in the practice, you know, like a Sharia law and such up until today. But in the other hands, also Aceh, back within this particular context, within the area itself, it's contain resources. So that's why it's always frictions in this area. Quite unfortunate, we have a very sad news during the tsunami. And Agus already in Jakarta, if I'm not mistaken, during that time. But we are quite separate because we are college mate, like in the same college art school during in the art school during that time. So Agus tried to revive this strategy of generating into storytelling character within their own language, because could be Agus is the last of the person that still acknowledging this particular practice as the storyteller back in the Aceh context. So that's why when Agus, this is like with intermezzo. When Agus came to Kassel the first time on June 2021, Agus realized, so many people here are walking. Agus living in Jakarta, in the south of Jakarta, because in Jakarta we barely walk. Although we have pedestrians, we have pavement, but still we have to compete with other gesture, motorcycle, kiosks and such. So Agus realized that he quite imagining like, like everyone's here is walking. So Agus start to walk. So this is like his own particular reason to make his process alive. And also he's imagining to regard his particular articulation in the Grimm world, for example, to connect the dot within the Brothers Grimm. Agus dream like questionings like, do you know how big is the size of the shoe of the Brothers Grimm? Because Agus is imagining they're always walking, something like that. So it's give us like sense of really becoming part of the personal history or stories. Although it's fictions, but for Agus, it's kind of like embed to regard his experience into Kassel. So that's why this makes his stories is alive here. Although part of his story actually came from Indonesia's or Aceh, Banda Aceh context, but when he come here, suddenly he found these similarities or this familiar feeling. So in general, actually, to regard what you're saying or being questions to me, like most of it actually we found the similarities. It's different approach, it's different articulations, it's for sure it's different language, but it's still like quite embed with the similar practice. So actually we never like really having these thoughts of Germany, Europe is the Western countries or something like that, or Northern or something. For us it's no, because the things that we not acknowledge is because perhaps it's too far, and we don't have an access for us to having conversation aside of this particular privilege within the we came to Kassel because of Documenta 15. We never like really acknowledge that we are came from the global south. We only acknowledge that hey, we are came from Indonesia, and we come to Germany, and this is the thing that we would like to know. That's it. Not like okay, we have particular history about colonialism and such. Yes, we acknowledge that, but in the sense how we would like also to embrace of these differences. Because this is also quite problematic with us back in Indonesia. How we also embrace our differences to regard the 400 ethnicities, for example, that's still alive in this in these particular societies to regard our cultural societies, for example.
Thank you for this. I don't know that walking is something strange, something. So the walking of Argos is in a certain way cultural appropriation in a good way. Let's say.
We love to walk, actually, to be honest.
And we have in our group, we have one artist. He, as he was a young boy, he see his village go in a big hole. He was waste away, and his makes a lot of pressure, and it gives him his shape as an artist or his form or whatever. And I know that we know that Jakarta is, it's like in Venice. The people who are drinking makes the city sinking. And also, we are the rich countries who are consume so much makes the sea higher. There's two questions for Jakarta to go down: the drinking and the sinking. And do you live with this reality, this climate reality?
Actually, I'm not an expert to answer this particular matters within the Jakarta as a whole, as an area, as a ground, also as an area. But to regard our way of acknowledging Jakarta as a city, actually beforehand, that's why the Dutch during that time building the same system within the canal, just like the things that happen in Amsterdam or any other cities in the Netherlands, because we have like quite similar terrain. So within this terraforming and such, Jakarta actually it's always being the the waterway, because Jakarta is in the north coast, which is surrounded by West Java province that mostly within the structures of the terrain is in the highland. So the water is always goes down to Jakarta, and Jakarta used to have lots of different meadow, like a swamp or a meadow. It is like part like the natural drainage of the water, but quite unfortunate because of the building and such. For sure, the concrete is becoming a problem, and then creating several blocks to regard the waterway, especially the big river. So that's why it's quite problematic. And with or without the gesture of the rising of the sea levels, actually like mostly every day or every night. Like most of our dear friends that live in the north of Jakarta, some also collective mostly have this activity there. They're always rising, like 10 centimeter or 5 centimeter, 20 centimeter. It depends, and also the within the gesture of the sense on to embrace this issue about the environmental issue or matters in Jakarta. It's quite complex because we facing different needs. Like us as an artist as well could contribute to regard the to make more cautious to regard this environmental gesture. But in the other hand, also we also facing the difficulties on how we would like to distribute this particular knowledge about the environmental, because each of everyone that come to Jakarta have like a very different a point of view on how they would like also to survive back in Jakarta, economic wise. But here in particular, several other countries that already already have this advantage to have, like for example, recyclable, upcycling and such is much more easy because there's already some structures in it. But in Indonesia we don't have. So for example, to change someone to bring your own water bottles, for example, for them it's considered expensive because we need to buy. Although everyone need to buy, for example, but still like to think like, oh, then we have to buy. Then so in this sense it's becoming very exclusive. So it's different. So that's why we need to have like more into a reasonable approach and as a gesture of introductions, and then later on perhaps they will try to find their own options. We need to give them options rather than, okay, this is talking about recycle. It's just like this. For them, it's like, what is this? Because we don't have very good structures among the waste management, for example, although there is, but it's not like very strong in our societies. So because each of the society, they have their own method on how they would like to recycle their own waste. Aside of that, we have facing the challenge to regard several different NGOs to introduce this particular model or system that not quite embed to regard the societies in us, Indonesia, for example. So it's always facing this difficulty. But this is part not only negotiating, but it's how you would like to communicate.
This was Iswanto. Yeah. He likes cars with strong engines. Simple question and very complex answer. Documenta 15, as it started, for me it was very, very, very complex. This creating structure, for example, in every building you have something who crashes this white cube concept. In the Fridericianum, it was like a temple for many people. It's like a temple, and there must be very good art. And you build in the Fridericianum this kindergarten. I think it's kindergarten is English and German too. You build this kindergarten, and this crashes sozusagen this house, this temple, and you come in and find something complete new. Or Documenta, we have this skateboard thing, or we did it similar. We have this 100 day is crashing of this is not a white cube. Oh my God, must not be. And we are crashing it and crashing in a positive way. That we said, okay, we want to in the middle of it we make this 100 people 100 days to come in this as very important questions. And so I think it's your working method in Documenta 15 that you all this very important capitalism, poor, rich, world climate, genocide, racism, is everything a very complex structure that you make in this huge mountain. It's a mountain.
I think our life also already complex in this matter. So. And because you mentioned about the space, I guess the way that you introduced the first time you and Sylvia introducing Hugenottenhaus in the beginning, when you start to plan everything's in the bags, we're going to be look like this, look like that, and then how you also acknowledge this building already creating this particular archive or even memory for the ones that already activate together. Even you didn't care about the how each of every artist going to use this space, but they celebrating. When they suddenly could have the sense on, hey, we could work within this space, let's work on it. So this is like the simplest effort for us to like really acknowledging, and in the same time, we also would like to contribute what's missing in this particular space, because back in the, again, part of our history, like in Jakarta, we always have these competitions for having space. And this is problems, because again, back of our gesture in the society, we always close to the earth. So there's no such sense that saying that we don't have a house, because we could have a house to feeling home everywhere we are. Back in our cultural societies, for example, like you could be like just outdoor. It's not people considering you homeless, because perhaps this is your choice to go outside to like really crashing somebody's places just to sleep over and something like that, because I did that too. I living in my campus even for something like that, because I thought this could be my home, something like that. And then as long as I could give some trust to acknowledge this particular space that could work differently, why not? Let's introduce this. So concerning about the, let's say, the usual suspect of Documenta's venue, the way that we learn directly here in Kassel, actually there's lots of potential. There's lots of potential. Like Fredicianum, we turn into more into discourse about the matter of knowledge distributions, for example. So if you're talking about the knowledge distribution, for sure it should be come from different generations. So the younger generations, like even the Graziella Kunz within this baby context, like childcare context, or even Ruru kids, for example. Actually, this is the thing that practice that already embed. I mean, with or without Fredicianum, this particular practice will be embedded anywhere in our local context anyhow. So that's why we're not bringing something new. We're bringing something, the ones that perhaps not familiar, but in the sense it is familiar actually. I mean, you know already within your practice in the Hugenottenhaus, for sure you know, acknowledge like this artist would like to kind of like destroying this space or change this particular structure into. This is really fun to have this sense on innovative idea, yeah? But this is not a new thing, because when we start to acknowledge that we need our own space to have our own practice being acknowledged that could connect it to this particular dot of how we could use even small scale of space, then we will maximizing it. This is the things that happen within our practice mostly, because again we never like really had chance to work upon the specific space for us to introduce us practices. Most of the time we are crammed or being invited to one of the gallery, and you said you could have this wall, that's it, that's your space. And then suddenly we could have like, okay, this is your space. Yes. Then I could think differently. So this is like always the challenge. Although, for sure, it's not always becoming like a solid formulation. This is like partly like how we also evaluate. I guess your questions also evaluating to regard the space in a very specific context, just like you and the rest of the family of the Hugenottenhaus, how you also respected this particular space, how it's going to be formed or transformed even. Yeah. Because then you send, even when I'm back in Indonesia, I saw on how you even move the house or you dig the ground. Like, yeah, that's the process. The way that we acknowledge is quite have the similarities, which is the same. How you deal and interact within your particular ground.
That's right. Thank you for this outspeak similarity space. Now we open the space for the auditorium, because there are questions. There are many people here around who maybe want to question you something. Before I give it to our auditorium, I want to thank you for this Documenta 15. There are some people, art scientists, who said it's was heißt gescheitert? I don't know. It's not a failed. And I can't know from which point of view somebody could say this. From which mountain I could stay like more than a pope. It's really God could say you have failed. We don't know what's sharp knives, and sometimes hurts the owner. We learned this, and before we go to your. We invite you to have a space in Hugenottenhaus. I already give you, our Hugenottenhaus team, Silvia, Pascal, Jasmin, Stefan Habetzel, we want to invite you to have a space here in this room. And I know you are living longer in Kassel with your family, as 2 years or whatever, or forever, I don't know. Thank you in this moment, and now we open to the auditorium.
Yes, Reza, thank you for the conversation and the kind words you said here. I want to jump a little bit more back. I want to talk about speak we had with Fari, yes. And he also talks about the friend thingy, that you're here as a group, as a collective to make friends, but he also said that he also want to cook together. And then out of the space there, one question was, is the kitchen big enough? Is the kitchen in the flat big enough? And the documenta gave you. And the question for me is, now you're here for years, do you had these kind of cooking with the citizens of Kassel and with the whole group, and what are your thoughts about this being together in a cognitive way more?
Yeah, thank you for that. Because the things are perhaps from some of our dear friends in Kassel during that particular period of, is it press conference if I'm not mistaken, seems like they are promising something that perhaps could like really, okay, could be suitable to our needs. Even I have still owe Mickey a cooking lesson together. That's the things, because actually, like, okay, this is a very good question. When some of the artists like Brito, Artras from Dhaka, or even Good Kitchen or even Jatiwangi in Hubner, for example, they start. I mean, they're already opening this so-called open kitchen for sure. Although it's not Ruangrupa who's cooking, but at least, or even in Ruru House, for example, at least. We just try to accommodate, hey, is it true that we're going to open like Indonesian restaurant here in Kassel? Because we need helps. I mean, like, it's because for us to make this, what's it called? Yeah, it's particular way of how us we should be acknowledge each other actually through foods. I mean, in Indonesia it's always like that. Even throughout our assembly within the artists, the first thing that we ask is always like, what kind of food that you have for breakfast? Or perhaps we could make a jokes with Richard Bell, the ones that reside in Australia, for example. You already have lunch there, while we have breakfast here. You know, these kind of things. Like, it's always like, it is part of on how we would like also to being acknowledge each other. So the cooking actually is a part of the gesture on how we could have like different conversations. And always like during the eating within the table and such particular cuisine, and we could discuss everything toward this particular knowledge. So perhaps I don't know if this is good answer, but for sure there's lots of things that not being accommodating yet or being proceeding yet in the sense up until today, especially the cooking session and such. But there's always like a willing how we would like also to share our Indonesian recipes, for example. So because this is like also creating like more into gesture. If we cannot cook for you, perhaps you could cook for yourself, but we will give you some Indonesian recipes, even from our secret kitchen. We would love to share it. But if there's like opportunity for sure, like here also we find out like very quite warm gesture. So that's why we always thank to most of our dear friend in Kassel. Like most of the time we are visiting everywhere, they always like offering us, let's say, drink or some food or some cakes, and then they have like always effort to introducing, this is foods, like typical foods from here. This is the same. This is the same actually. This is the same gesture. Although we don't have to open Indonesian restaurant, but this could be like a very good idea still. And if we could like really, we becoming like our stakeholder or shareholder together, let's make it. Because so far, many friends come to Kassel in particular to acknowledge, actually they acknowledge this particular statement. Where's Indonesian restaurants? You said they're going to open an Indonesian restaurant. Once I've been eating somewhere outside, and this particular person came to me directly. They said like, are you the ones that came from Jakarta, from Ruangrupa? I said, yes. Where's the Indonesian restaurants? Because I read in the newspaper you're going to open an Indonesian restaurant. Like, oh, this is my mistake. Yeah.
But the question was more in the direction of not to make a restaurant out of it, to not make part where you can cook for each other or you can give us the recipes. It's more than be together within the food and be together within the cooking and have these conversations. You talk about it and things is more.
This is more into togetherness actually. The reasons on how we try to project what if we're going to being as together, for example, because this could be like our strong gesture. But it's not. But it's not like new things, no? Like everyone's also would like to think the same when you have a friends around or you believe that you are a good host, then for sure you're going to provide something in the such minimal effort, even only water, only giving the blanket because it's too cold or something like that. That's also gesture, not only something that you could intake, for example. Thank you.
I don't know how difficult is the question, but 2 years ago, Farid said in a Zoom he was asked, how do you make decision in the collective? And he said, we don't make decision. And they asked again, so how are decisions being made? And he said they happened. But I know it's complicated, but I would like to understand more, maybe it's how it's happening in the last 100 days. Because it's not one collective, it's a lot of them.
Okay, but the decision making is always quite problematic, yeah, to regard the collective gesture of thinking, because in Indonesia gesture deciding means membuat keputusan. Membuat keputusan, loosely translated, then you have to. This is the point that you need to stop. Like putus mean cut. Actually, okay, this is it. Something like that. And in our gesture of acknowledging different thoughts that could arise even when the deciding matter is already almost there, sometimes like, how do we just, okay, let's take a big look around. It's always like that. So for us, to make a decision is not most of the main thing, but to understand what is decisions, this is much more makes sense, because it's always growing, because we know that as practices is not dealing with that you have to full stop here, because we believe that this could be growing. This could be like perhaps my idea or Farid's idea. I think the one who should answer this is Farid, but it's okay. But yes, this is like a quite a very good evaluations, to be honest. Like this could be like a very good criticizing to regard our collective practices, because we always always takes long time for us to generate into decisions. But decision in the making is always very good for us. So sometimes when we get very exhausted, most of us, we don't have to decide anything. We just keep, like, for example, okay, you go. I will support you. I trust you, because you know what you are doing is also part of ruangrupa. That's it. So we decide only like to trust someone. Okay, then if you still believe that rather than we cannot move on, then let's move on to regard this particular practice. Let's try to find out what's good or what's not, because we don't know. Because we don't know. We always realize that every decision for sure is going to I mean, deciding or not is always a risk there. So that's why let's acknowledge the risk, and then let's keep on moving towards. So that's why we always call this exercise. We never like, I mean, so far the way that I know, even since college time, we never like really decide something solid. For example, like let's make description about ruangrupa. It takes time, actually, to be honest. Like descriptions, like on the website. Is it still working? Yeah, exactly. Something like this, because we believe that every one of us right now, even they could like really growing into something. Perhaps we could need to add this, because this is our point. It's always like that, but it's true. Like decisions making in our collective, it's always quite difficult in the sense, but it's not that we are not having decisions, but it's kind of like a take times even for us. So this is the things that perhaps for some institution, not only for Documenta, but any other institution that already worked with us, they always also asking the question, who to decide, like which one are you going to decide? Like,
not very German.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is the thing that we learn at least. So we don't want to change anything, but at least, okay, we need to decide. In particular moment, we need to decide. But it's always like a process to it. Yeah.
Hi Reza, I have also a question. I'm not sure if you did talk about that because I was too late. You know, Documenta is a time crasher. I have a personal question. What are your hopes for the next year in Kassel? And the same question also, what will be with ruangrupa? Which plans you have? How will life continue? What are your hopes, your wishes, your plans?
That's a very also quite hard to to be answered by this point. But again, that us making collective since the beginning actually because we would like to find the way of living. This is our living, like this is our office actually, to have like a collective as ruang rupa. Actually this is our office too. So that's why we don't have a meeting, for example, because every day we met each other since college time. Imagine like it's more than 22 years that we always meet each other every day. So personally, in my case, the ones that we would like to live or extend these invitations as a gesture that we would love also to share most of our practice here in Kassel, and our hope is hopefully we could still contributing, and hopefully we could still listening and learning within each other, because for me personally, I'm lucky. Perhaps I could learn directly, or I could have some school here in Kassel directly. I don't have to choose any other cities or any other countries, but this is like a very solid ground that I could have myself contributing as a Kasseler, for example. I don't know if this could be accepted or not, but at least I'm going to make myself very welcome here because I'm here already. Yeah. So this is very important, not only for me, but also to regard my family, to regard our kids, for example, and also to regard the future so-called of ruang rupa, let's say, or the future so-called us as an ecosystem or collective back in Jakarta or even Indonesia. Could be like very strong examples to relate to the practice that happened in Kassel, because Kassel is not important because of documenta. Kassel is important because the Kassel itself. They have like a very strong history, it's very strong characteristic. The way that I learn, at least, because it's always saying like, why don't you move to Berlin, for example? Why don't you move to other big cities? Name it. And I said like, why Kassel? I mean, why not? Like, you know, like why not? Like, I don't make a choice here. I'm come here and then suddenly I realize I would love to stay here. That's it. I don't try to compare, like, because many friends also asking like, but do you miss Jakarta? For sure we miss our hometown. But another way around, perhaps this is like hopefully this could be as a good school for me to have here, to like really keep on learning about what could be meant as a value of common, as a value of this particular relationship, because we never know about this particular history, about the castle and such. It always makes us curious since the back in this relation toward documenta. Many of us friends that quite luckily enough visiting documenta is always talking about documenta but never talk about castle. For us it's a pity. Although it's very difficult for many friends that coming to documenta right now to spend a long time in castle because lots of reasons, right? The accommodation and such. But to acknowledge castle much more relate to regard lots of different practices happen here from each of every individual that I know up until today, the ones that live in Kassel or the one that used to live in Kassel back again to Kassel to celebrate. For us, this is like, for me personally, this is like very strong gesture of supporting system toward Kassel ecosystem, this is like a very strong gesture, and we should respect that, and we should be very thankful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any questions? No questions. At the moment they are shy, aber
Hi, Reza. So you talked about how you approached Fridericianum with the question, what is missing here, right? And you found the kindergarten approach. My question is, what would you say? What is missing in Germany, and what is missing in Indonesia?
Yeah. Okay. That's a side of Indonesian food in Kassel. Yeah, for sure. That's what we miss. Although we could like really cook easily because we could find like many ingredients. We have to thank you, Vicky. The things that we miss actually is because accessibility. actually. Accessibility is on how we try to see among each others. It's not only to Germany, because your question is to regard Germany, but we have like a very strong relationships actually. But this is could be like the ones that being acknowledged in Kassel in particular. So what we miss actually, we never like really have this. I mean, aside of diplomacy, aside of even the cultural alignment within Indonesia and Germany, because for example, like the cultural alignment is even 72 years of relationship to Indonesia, and even the diplomacy, bilateral relationship toward Germany and Indonesia, actually we celebrated this year as 70 years. This is another relationship. But the thing that we miss actually, how we could as well embrace the ones that really specific to regard this differentiate. Because if we talk about German in Indonesia, the things that most of Indonesians relate are football. That's it. Football. Everywhere it's like, Germany, football, Bundesliga, name it. It's always like that. It's always like that's Indonesia's context. So this is the things that we embrace about German in our particular context. The second is about science, achievement of science, achievement of literature, achievement of technology. This is embedded in our societies when you're talking about German. This relationship toward institutions of technology, even my own city, like Bandung, actually the sister city of Braunschweig. It's the statue is there. Every time I'm passing by, when I'm still in going to school, I always, what is sister city and why Braunschweig? It's always like that. Even I show it when I have a chance to meet friends from Braunschweig, come to Kassel, I said, hey, do you know this? And it's like, what is this? This is the relationship as a sister city. I grew up with that. So, but I never been there, to be honest, yet. Because my friends have a jokes. Take a picture at the Braunschweig and then send it to your friend in West Java. and then said that you hit the landmark. So I have 2 landmark at least. So, but this is the things that we miss. Actually, like, but gladly, ever since that we acknowledge, for example, like the Goethe Institute. But this is institutions, right? To acknowledge like comprehensive into literature or language, or even the systematic on how you could perceive your future in Germany, something like that. But the things that we miss actually the most, what's it called, yeah? It's not this particular institution to institution, but this human relationship. Because many of us always dealing with the characteristic of transiting, right? For example, if Lutz come to Indonesia, not staying, at least maximum you only have 90 days. That's it. And then suddenly we only learn from Lutz. Or you came and then suddenly I need to go vacations also because Indonesian considering beautiful, many islands and such, and then you go. So this thing of connection. But there's lots of different societies that connect to Germany in particular, actually. So this is also embedded. Like we have, for example, in Jakarta, it's easy to mention. We have German International School, for example. Or we have connected to the, let's say again, the Goethe-Haus, for example. So it's much more easy. And then even the German literature is being studied in university. Like, so this is like the connection that we have. But the missing is a lot, actually. Like, I'm experiencing Oktoberfest back in 95 or 96 in Jakarta. I don't know what is this. But we could pay one price for all things, the buffet and such. But I don't know what's really happening there, actually, to be honest. But for me, it's very interesting. Suddenly we acknowledge, like, Oktoberfest. And suddenly it's connected to, I don't know if I'm not mistaken, but most of friends said it's from Bavaria, from the southern, or something like that. So it's not like the whole Germany, so it's something like that. So this is like, approaching these notions of more into intimate relationship. This is the thing that we miss, perhaps. We always having the relationship because of the program, of the project, of the research, of the education. But this human, we need that. So that's why it's such a privilege. That's why I'm very thankful, my family and my dear colleague, to be here. Is because although from Kassel we could gain lots of things that we could like really learn and to connect or even reconnect the ones that we miss, perhaps. Hopefully it's good to grow like that.
Question, please.
Hi. First of all, I like your socks.
Oh,
They
thank
look
you.
very
This
cool.
is PMTO. No, it's different. Sorry.
Different ones.
I thought I used the PMTO socks.
So we talked a lot about differences between Jakarta and Kassel. I'd like to know if there are similarities too, or things that even make you feel at home here.
Yeah, I don't know if I could make these things up to regard similarities among Jakarta and Kassel. But at least we came here during the pandemic. And that's the similarities among us all, not only Jakarta and Kassel. Because this is also first experience. But let's take a step back. The only chance that we had, me, Iswanto, Daniela, and Andan, that we have opportunity to come to Kassel for I think 3 weeks during that time is in July 2019. So that's the first time. We came, if I'm not mistaken, on Saturday, and we thought, oh, let's go around on Sunday. We don't have any clue. Then Sunday morning we woke up because we are very excited to be in Kassel for the first time in our life. Then we stood up in our balcony in the apartment, and we said like, it's so quiet on Sunday. Okay, it's so quiet. Feels like we are somewhere. We're not even concerning, or I mean, we never like really compare this is small town, big cities and such, never. But we feels like, okay, let's go to the center of the town because we need to find out what's really going on there, right? So far that I know, or so far that we experience, actually we count people there is only like 25 to 40 people in the city. Perhaps it's too early in the morning, like around 8 or 10 if I'm not mistaken. But the similarity was, because I don't know, perhaps they see us different gesture, or perhaps if they consider us as a tourist in Kassel, perhaps they will ask like, why do you come in Kassel? Because there's no such thing as tourism. Perhaps you just go to the Hercules and such. But the way that I found out the first time, actually, like when we met eye to eye, they say hello. That's a very warm gesture of similarities or familiar feeling that we had. Like, you went to the bus, you say greetings, like, I don't know, like good day or something like that. That's the similarities in Indonesia. When you met someone in the street, they say like, hello, mau kemana? Like asking you question, although you didn't know, like mau kemana means where you going. But here, you no, I mean, there's not such thing like where you going. Yeah, they say hello or guten Tag or moin or something like that. So that's always like a gesture of welcoming. So for us, wow, yeah, this is nice when we could say hello to everyone suddenly, like without any, even when we have friends and we shout this particular name of friends from our balcony, for this person is surprised and said like, this is the first time that someone shouting my name in the streets. This is like the similar gesture, like when everyone's know, when you come to Jakarta and know somebody, they will say your name when you say like, Reza, something like that. Although you don't have a conversation, you just say hello. So this gesture actually is embedded to us, and also saying thank you. That's in particular, like the ones that we've, when we go to the shop or something like that, it's always say thank you. Even sometime, like have a good day to you, and we said like have a good day too, something like that, you know. Although you didn't know the name even. And then when we even like when I greet the persons, shopkeepers who have name tag, I greet them by the name, they say thank you. And I was like really, oh, wow. Indonesia is actually sometimes it's quite difficult when you say like hello and say like, who is this? And, you know, sometimes it's also like that. But here, no matter what, I mean, sometimes you just not even seeing the eyes, but you see like somebody is passing by you and you say like, moin, and say like, moin. You know, this conversation and makes you feel safe, no? This makes you feel safe. So, oh yeah, sorry. So this is the, I think this is the familiar or similarities, the way that we could share.
Especially on Sunday on the berg.
Oh yeah, I think we missed direction. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Haberzettel?
Yeah, it's nice to have you here tonight. at in our last show. And thanks a lot for this fabulous documenta and documenta time. The last 48 hours we are facing at the moment. How can you tell us what are you doing the next 48 hours? And is it busy for you? And after that, you invited so many people, so many people in the collectives, and they invited people also to Kassel. And what do you hope for the spirit of documenta is spreading into the world?
This could be like a very big hope, yeah. But to regard my schedule, I think Andy also know my schedule. Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, at least the way that we believe that we have tasks and also responsibility, for sure we gladly that we could accompany for the next couple of hours. That's one thing. And as a hope, actually, as part of our sense that one of the main reasons by hoping that hopefully this is could be like one of the gesture that could be very welcome to Kassel, because we did this in Kassel, not other cities. And if this happened in Jakarta, we are very lucky. Yeah. But this is always in Kassel, always happen in Kassel, which is Kassel should be very lucky to have Kassel as a part of this, as the way of us living. So our hope that, although not always in the sense of collective, not always in the sense of lumbung, the way that we bring, but to generate more into a different gesture on how Kassel have a very strong, important history. Documenta is a one of it, but as a Kassel, it is like a creating like a. Hopefully, we could add some new ingredient aside of pandemic ingredients to Kassel kitchen. Let's say, I don't know what. I don't know. We don't know how us going to use this particular ingredient, but at least this is our offer to Kassel by introducing ourselves, by being here, by being also hand to hand together, and also for sure facing like lots of difficulties together. We are not ideal. We are not answering many things out of curiosities. We are not a problem solver, but our strong reasons why since the beginning we would like to accept this particular documenta as a part of our process or our practice is because this strong gesture on how we also would like to know something about what is Kassel and then what is the documenta as a history, because this is the things that we're going to bring back as a part of our ingredients in our kitchens too. So we don't know about what's really going on later on, but at least we know that many of us here thinking about the good things. That's it. Although for sure it's not easy. So this way is very thank you. Yeah.
Yes. You have seen it before, Lutz, but I will close it with our thank you for you and your ruangrupa for this documenta. I think it's for me a very great support for all movement in the city. And when you ask why Kassel, why we live in Kassel, because here are a lot of structure which are for the future. Yes, and you have shown it, show it for us and give a big impulse to see it, and so it can grow up in the next years. I hope so. Yes, with your help, you are stay on our side the next years, and we want to stay on your side. And in the restaurant, I think, I have seen a big table to sit together and to be connected, because now we need a new place to be connected. Yes, and we are looking together where it could be. Yes, thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Castle, also.
Before we ending, Documenta is ending, Hugenottenhaus exhibition is ending, and for me it's the beginning. For me it's really beginning. You said one sentence, 5 sentences before. If somebody says to you good morning, gives you a feeling of safety. That means that we are, as we are human beings, has to deal with unsafety. Unsafety, fragility, violence, and so on. And we all hope the best for ourselves and for our children to be safe, to have food, to meet people who are warming up with not so sharp knives. And in this way, Documenta 15 for me is a success. I want to say this from the bottom of my heart. And now we, I hope that's the beginning of to appreciate or to more learn about solidarity, about let's come to common. Yeah. Yesterday we had Karl Wilhelm Steuernagel here. He's a medicine, and he grew up 12 children and help people, ill people. He goes to Ukraine, and we ask him, what's the reason? Why do you do this? And I think it's. I let it. I don't want to destroy this question with any answer, but we should think about this more. Now we end. People here, 100 people, 100 days. Our exhibition, Erste Hilfe First Aid, and I want to really thank Reza to be here also in the future, and I want to thank the Hugenottenhaus team. I see here around, it's Silvia, it's Jasmin, it's Pascal, it's Stefan, and Stefan from Boston. Will noch jemand was sagen an dieser Stelle? Ansonsten auf Wiedersehen. Im nächsten Jahr geht es natürlich weiter. Im nächsten Jahr geht es natürlich weiter. Wir haben ja auch noch, morgen ist noch Ausstellung?
Der Reza ist ja dabei nächstes Jahr.
Genau.
Reza ist ja dabei nächstes Jahr.
Yes. We are planning our exhibition in the next year and Reza will be part of it. Okay, goodbye.